first. Let's see what we have on the front pages. The Daily Express leads with, "Time for talk is over. Europe must step up." The Mail has, "The King's show of solidarity." The Guardian has, "Prime Minister calls for coalition of the willing to end the Ukraine war." Bless you. More front pages in a moment, but first, Simon, what do you make of Monday's Express? We can guess the story.
Clearly, I'm allergic to it. It's time for talk is over. Europe must step up. Nobody can fail to have noticed the mounting warlike rhetoric emerging from Europe to balance the planet, which was in danger of sinking into pacifist and defeatist air. I mean, he's introduced Zelensky to King Charles.
Yeah.
It's got to be worth something, hasn't it? There's a picture of him standing there, as you said off air, in what appears to be Vanta black clothing. He's utterly invisible, just a floating face wherever you see him now.
And nobody's criticising him for dressing as a puppeteer.
Well, no, that's the nice thing about Britain, isn't it?
Yeah.
In America, we'll come on to that story lately, they mocked him for attending the White House dressed as... I thought he would quote Johnny Cash, who always said, "As long as there is injustice in the world, I'll continue to be the man in black." But Prince Charles there is wearing a baggy, double-breasted suit that went out of fashion in 1984, so he's in no position to criticise.
Saving money.
Yes, absolutely.
Saving money on Vinted.
But yeah, I mean, more seriously, obviously there is an extraordinary amount of instability, a disconcerting sense that we have moved suddenly, been fast-forwarded into a new era.
Yeah. A
quote which I've seen a couple of people reference, which I think is quite useful to understand it, was from Henry Kissinger. Not in relation to this, of course, powerful though he is. He's been dead for some time now. But he said, I can't remember who it was relating to in the time, but he said sometimes somebody comes along, not necessarily a man of great insight or power or intelligence or anything, but in some way he forces the world to recognise that a kind of a lie has been allowed to settle over the top of a truth is emerged. Something that we've all sensed is probably actually there, but it hasn't been recognised. It's been papered over. It's been wood chipped for too long, and we break through and realise the plaster is rotten under it. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think Europe, Kerry, has become too complacent and too dependent on and just assuming that America is always going to be there to be the big boy who'll sort out conflicts. And as a result, because Europe has got weak and it's allowed itself to just sort of turn inward and attack itself. You know, you can see Starmer locking up British citizens for expressing opinions when, you know, he should be celebrating British citizens because they might be the ones who are going to war for him.
It looks like, doesn't it? And we've gone all hard power now with hard power, 2.7% rise in our troops, so which is not very much really. Starmer vows to put boots on the ground and planes in the air, which is the right way around, by the way. Although I think if he did it the other way around, get the planes on the ground, put boots in the air, we might confuse the enemy.
Boots in the shopping mall.
Yeah, totally. Try anything. It's all been quite fascinating, hasn't it? To see it's that Trump effect. He says the wrong things. He upsets people. He calls Zelensky a dictator, which he didn't mean at all. If he thought Zelensky was a dictator, he'd admire him. He loves that kind of stuff, you know. So, and there's so much crazy. We're seeing the left becoming more pro or more anti-Russia. The right being more pro-Russia, which is an odd sort of polar shift.
I think there's a sort of schism on the right between people who are sort of more aligned with, I guess, the old, you know, Pax Americana, neocon approach to world affairs and don't align with Putin at all. And then there's other people who somehow see Ukraine as the vaccine and Putin as an anti-vaxxer.
Yes, there is, isn't it? It's all very strange at the moment. But it's also this belief that we're hearing that, and, you know, I do understand. I think it's awful the way Russia, obviously, the way Russia attacked, Ukraine just out of the blue like that. I genuinely, I wonder...
It wasn't quite out of the blue. There was a bit of build-up.
Well, I mean, it was a sudden attack. It wasn't like they went, hey, we're going to attack you next week unless you do this. It just went straight into it.
In 2014, they took Crimea, and then there was...
of course, there's all that happened beforehand, yes.
Warm conflict.
Of which they still have troops in Georgia, which stops Georgia from having a proper democracy and so on. And, I mean, it's building up, and it looks like... Starmer at the moment sounds like he's really up for it.
Yeah, and it looks like Zelensky is actually going to sign this mineral deal as well. Well, that's the noises coming from these...
He's being pushed
I think that's overtaken the newspapers, actually, to some extent, isn't it? That news came through, although, of course, it's still just rumour. Mandelson, as we will see later, who you referenced, was encouraging him, and I suspect behind closed doors, Keir was like, "Listen, we'll do what we can, but I really think you'd be better off."
Yeah, I wonder if he's going to go back to the White House.
We'll introduce you to Charles. You can have your picture taken at the Imperial Wall Museum. But,
will he go back in a suit? That's what I wonder now. And you know,
and a MAGA hat.
Yeah, exactly. Go the whole way. I do wonder a little bit whether he thinks not necessarily that he's going to win, but that he can hold out long enough.
Well, this is the thing,
because there's a bit of Muhammad Ali sort of 12 rounds of this and then boom.
The way Trump is portraying the conflict is Russia has completely dominated Ukraine, and Ukraine is on its last legs, and that's not at all what's happening. Russia's
not at all.
Down,
the very
its
fact,
last donkey, and Ukraine is getting
the donkey had to come in, of course.
Ukraine is getting new tech, just at this point, and
they've become really hardened fighters.
The Russian offence is pretty much petered out, and now Ukraine is retaking land in Tourette's.
If it doesn't go nuclear, which doesn't seem really likely, then they could hold out. And the very fact that the North Korean army came in doesn't show, as Trump was saying, that there's an endless power or endless number of soldiers. It actually shows how desperate they were getting.
Absolutely. And Simon, do you think there could be an element of not so much Ukraine can't win, but Ukraine can't be allowed to win?
Well, I mean, that feels to me quite like an edge position. I'm not saying conspiracy theory, but the idea that I'm not quite sure.
MAGA Kool-Aid? I'm
not quite sure what Trump would benefit. Well, I mean, that sounds like you're saying Trump is a Putin asset.
No, I'm saying MAGA are putting out this idea that Ukraine is completely weak and defenseless.
But you're saying that they don't want. If they think it's in the balance, but it would be detrimental to American foreign policy interests for Ukraine to actually defeat Russia and drive it back into its own borders.
It would be incredibly risky for Ukraine to actually win and retake all the land.
Why? Why would that be risky?
Sun Tzu said, build your enemy a golden bridge to retreat across. I think it would destabilise Russia, the Russian people who've, sort of indulged this special military operation so far, because it hasn't really impacted their lives, and they haven't really been, nationally humiliated, would then have this incredible humiliation. Putin would lose all his authority over the people and would be replaced, or Russia would balkanise, would fragment into separate states, which is all. I mean, you've got the Chechens, you've got various other.
I'm still waiting to see how this is detrimental to American foreign policy interests.
Well, I think chaos in Russia would be detrimental to the world.
Also, it gives America a chance to sort of back out of NATO a little bit as well, which I think they're looking like they're interested in doing. So there's a lot of possibility. You know what I think is going to happen? I think Zelensky's going to end up giving everything away. I think he's already agreed they can't have nuclear weapons anyway. They're not going to be allowed to join NATO. They're going to give away some territory. Then they're going to give away all their mineral rights, and then Putin will die. And the next day, they'll go, "Oh, that was all for nothing,"
I mean, it is a good question who comes in after Putin. Everyone. There are two. It's interesting you say people maxing Putin onto anti-vaxxers or whatever. There are different analogies and different kind of dimensions, but the main two analogues that I think people use are either is Putin Hitler and is this 1939 or 1941, and the other one is organised crime. It's the mafia, basically. Sure. And I personally veer towards the latter. I've always said international law is just organised crime. Yeah. It has a nicer burr, it has a nicer finish. Some people are able to put on a nice... But, The Godfather was literally about the ambition of Don Corleone that his favourite son should become a senator, that they should move from one form of organised crime into another. That's how it is, right? Yeah. There is no overarching polity. There is no
but Trump gets the same thing, doesn't he?
In world affairs. Yeah. It is basically a series of veiled threats.
And I guess we're seeing that being put out in the open by Trump right now. And if we move on to The Guardian, there's this story about at least 25 police spies duped sexual partners. This was undercover cops who were lying to women. I mean, I think this is a bit unfair. I mean, we've all lied to women. You know what I mean?
Speak for yourself, Leo.
Sometimes I've pretended I'm not a terrible person.
We're not all like you. So apparently over decades, these were undercover cops who were supposed to be looking at extreme groups and so on, and they got the term undercover a bit mixed up with get under the covers. And now what's happening decades later is the reason why this has come up is because the babies are being born and their first words are hello, hello, hello. And everyone's going, that's a bit suspicious. So, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting experiment. They've spawned a new generation of half cop, half activist. So maybe that'll work in the long run.
Well, just in time for a activist criminal justice system.
I can remember one of these. This was quite a famous case quite a long time ago about, I mean, this may be one of these instances that this guy had gone into I think they were like anarchists or something that were considered to be a threat at that time, you know, before the Great Awakening. Yeah, exactly. And this guy had married and had children with her, you know.
Wow.
And at some point, I mean, you know, this has been examined in Hollywood and so on. At some point, you have to question: are you undercover, or have you forgotten who you are, or is there something that can be reworked? It's quite an
or did you just
question,
want sex?
Yeah.
Which is also a possibility.
Once you're in, you know, it's really hard to break up once you're once you're in that deep. Let's take a couple more.
Well, what did that mean?
The Telegraph, and we're at a crossroads in history. Starmer tells Europe. The Daily Star has flippin' lovely out there, folks. That must be referencing the weather. So we've got the Telegraph with the obviously. This meeting between Starmer, Zelensky and Macron. They've also got some other stories on there.
Yes, I just want to reference the crossroads. It's a fork in the road, I think, isn't it? Crossroads gives you the option to just carry on going and ignore it. I don't think that's an option. Crossroads, they come all the time.
Yeah, this is a T-junction.
This is a T-junction, yeah, very much so. There's a commentary by Charles Moore, which is quite strong stuff, as he says he's very much pro sort of taking the fight to Russia. I find it quite interesting where the commentary from the editors and the, you know, some of the more right-leaning newspapers, not always predictable in their attitude to this particular dispute, but he seems to be getting right behind Keir Starmer, anyway, for what it's worth.
It's also a question, this idea that we are so under threat from Russia. You know, I'm not being against the joining in with the fight and so on, but surely it should be Europe. Europe's under more threat than us.
Yeah.
If Russia attacks Europe, they have to get through 2,000 kilometres of Europeans before they get to us. There's a reason why we talk about the 20th century in terms of Nazis and Germans rather than Russia. For us, the Cold War didn't affect us in the same way. So.
Yes, I mean, there's something coming up later with Rachel Reeves saying that, you know, a secure Ukraine is a secure UK. And I'm sorry, that isn't. It may be part of it, but it's not sufficient.
Yeah.
You know, there are quite a few other threats that we need to keep bearing in mind when we're allocating budgets. Anyway, that's Man United season goes from bad to worse. I'll just mention that in case Nick Dixon is watching.
Because Man United relegation.
They've been knocked out of the FA Cup on penalties by Fulham, and that is fairly humiliating. And that's right, they're in the bottom third of the table. At the very least, they could go down.
Blimey.
It's conceivable. It's extraordinary, isn't it? Yeah. They are the Germany of Premier League. Like, when they lost Alex Ferguson, it was like Germany losing Merkel, and they just haven't been the same since.
OK, and there's a story there as well. The BBC chief saw Gaza film weeks in advance. This is a documentary about Gaza, the place in the Middle East.
The place. Gaza,
not
the place. That's what they should have called it.
We've just been talking about football. I should make that distinction.
It's been removed from the iPlayer service, isn't it? And there's another petition has come along with people demanding it be put back on, even though they haven't.
And there's so much more coming out about it as well. The kid who was using it, who's a son of a Hamas official, turned up in a whole load of ITV programmes as well. So yeah, it goes back quite a while.
I mean, is he a bit part actor? He's in Emmerdale.
Yeah, he's turned out to have been in the same episode of Doctor Who as.
Nothing would surprise anyone at this point.
Basically, every murderer scum has appeared on some BBC children's show.
Or a BlackRock commercial for some reason.
That's right.
Anyway, that's the front pages done. More in a moment. We've got Rachel Reeves finding billions for Ukraine, but back home, Labour's ensuring Brits never switch off from work. This is Headliners, only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Why do you want to do this, my friend?
I want to raise awareness about what disabled people can do and try and change some perceptions on what is possible.
So, Craig, what happened to you when you were 18 years old? Because your life changed forever, didn't it, in Afghanistan?
It did, yeah. I was on routine foot patrol, and several feet in front of me was a Commando IED. They triggered it, and, yeah, triple amputee. Both legs and only the one hand. And
how did those injuries change your life, Craig?
Oh, yeah, in the worst way possible, you know. Everything I loved was taken away from me. Windsurfing taken away, guitar taken away. Couldn't even hug my parents or speak in the first initial few weeks. So it was a complete flip upside down.
I'm wheelchair bound and I have been for 2 years, and I only concentrate on what I can't do. And you're actually coming at this from the opposite way, and you're saying if you're disabled, these are the things you can do.
I'd say to you, focus on how you can't do those things. So how to actually achieve the things that you're not saying you can do. And if you give it a bit of time and thought, I'm pretty sure you'd achieve it.
Wow. And then what's led you to this challenge now? I mean, travelling 6,000 nautical miles from Mexico to Japan by yourself.
My dad taught me how to sail when I was very young, and that lasted up until I joined the army. When I was injured, the doctors saying, you know, look, sports are pretty much a no-go. My dad refused to take that as a thing. He gave me the details to the Paralympic sailing coach, and then I was in the Paralympic team for a little while. I didn't go to any games, but that reintroduced me to sailing and what was possible in the sailing world.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, and let's go to gbnews.com/yoursay for a couple of your comments. Jack's Bub says, whoa, just a thought, what if the Nobel Peace Prize goes to Starmer and not the Donald? There's a thought, although maybe neither of them will get it. And Paul Morris says, and the Oscar for Best Costume goes to Leo Kears for a cheap smoking jacket, likely bought from the self-same charity shop where Louis Schaefer gets his £1 ties. Ooh, meow, Paul.
£1 tie sounds like a nice Chinese meal, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's an awful insult.
Is it served by somebody wearing this?
Is it true, though?
You know, I bought this in Marks and Spencer's because I forgot one of my jackets when I was doing a speaking engagement.
It's got a lovely sheet. I expect his TV isn't adequate to bring that out.
Yeah, Paul, you need to upgrade to a plasma. Anyway, we've got the Times now, and Labour don't have money to heat up pensioners, but they do have money to blow up Russians, Kerry.
Oh, where are we? Oh, we're on the OK, I'm with you. I'm with you. I've caught up. Don't worry. Rachel Reeves unlocks billions for Ukraine and UK defence, which apparently is coming from her own money. Which no, it's not. But wouldn't that be great? Do you remember just about a moment ago we were in debt? we had this £20 billion black hole, and no, this is a bit like when your parents say they can't help you buy a car, and then next thing you know they're getting an extension. You know, it's got that feel to it. The Chancellor in Ukraine...
I'd say it's several orders of injustice to the right of that.
yeah, maybe, yeah.
Your parents are entitled to spend their money how they want.
It's a crucial meeting. A crucial meeting is what it says here of European leaders with Zelensky there and so on. They've signed for a 2.26 billion bilateral loan agreement. So yeah, it's interesting where all the money's coming from, which is also from even with the money for our building our army and so on. The 2.7%, we're reducing foreign aid, and now I think we're even looking at getting rid of the net zero and realising that's not been working and so on. So we're seeing massive changes and fast. I don't know. It's interesting to see. We're just, I'm wondering whether we're going to get any of the minerals. You know, why is it that Russia or rather America gets a big mineral deal out of all this? Well, and I feel a bit like, you know, when you do a charity gig and discover everyone else is being paid. You know, it's like, what's going on here? But
yeah, I mean, I'm sure opening up. I mean, this is the whole idea behind America's sort of global policing is to keep markets open and free, which enriches America but enriches everybody. But I mean, this could give Europe the sort of kick up the bum to toughen up and slash welfare and bring back patriotism and remilitarise.
Yes, absolutely. The actual immediate prospect of bankruptcy might sharpen their intellect a little bit, yeah. Well, I think there is a lot of pressure on net zero in particular, as you say, and that would make sense. They seem to have this 28 billion national wealth fund. They're only taking 10% out of that in order to loan it to Ukraine, and presumably they trust them to repay it or at least keep up on the interest payments. So it's probably an interest-only loan, isn't it? They're usually the best in these circumstances. I'm going to repeat it again, though. A safe and secure Ukraine is a safe and secure United Kingdom, Reeve said. And I'm sorry, it isn't. You know, it's an aspect of it. But if we're looking at a post-NATO world, that's just one aspect of it. That's just one part of it. There's all sorts of other considerably more immediate threats to our security, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I guess she could be making the point that it would fragment the sort of security arrangement that we've got with other NATO countries.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think there's a need for the other countries to step up, and we should be going in behind them, rather than leading the assault, when it's the other side of Europe. So. OK, well, we've got the Times now, and Labour used to be the party of the working class. Now they're the party of the never-stop working class.
Yes, this is another one of their ridiculous promises which they're having to row back on. Virtually everything like this falls apart within 6 months of contact with the road, doesn't it? And I don't think they can legitimately point at any particular emergency. They just realise it doesn't work. But Labour scraps workers' right to switch off to ease squeeze on business. This is people who have proper jobs, unlike comedians who are very rarely troubled after they get off stage, where their boss, ring them up or email them on weekends and in the evenings to ask them to give their thoughts or something. And they wanted that to become illegal. And I don't think it was ever enforceable, to be honest. It sounded like a nice gesture, and they're rowing back on it because they realised that, the whole thing, British business is on its knees as it is. We have about the lowest productivity in the world and have done for decades now. That isn't a Labour issue. It's actually quite mysterious how we managed to have such lower productivity than France.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absurd.
People who sleep for half the day.
Yes, exactly. The Mediterranean countries.
The reason is we've got mass immigration, so we've got essentially a slave economy where nobody invests in technological progress or the sort of automation that increases productivity.
Yeah.
Because they don't have to, because you can get a guy to do it for £3.
We need the Black Death. That was the 13th century.
I've said we need a plague for ages, or a nuclear war.
I'm for unlimited nuclear war or a limited plague. If we can control the numbers a little bit. And I know a lot of people are against nuclear war and so on, but they don't realise how easy it will be to park. That's my thing. It's parking. It's all about the parking.
And indeed, to find your car in the car park.
That's also part of it, yeah. No, Simon's right. The government came in really ambitious, didn't they? It was all very big claims, and we're seeing them reeling back on everything. And I think they're sort of running around madly trying to figure out how growth works at the moment, and not really quite sure. It's kind of fascinating. And what we're going to see with this bill is it started off with big promises to the unions and so on, and by the time the bill comes out, they're going to get rid of weekends. Unions will become a thing of the past, and then there's also the question of Angela Rayner, who brings in the bill, and now she's being sort of shoved out of it by the look of it by Jonathan Reynolds, the business secretary, and Rachel Reeves, who are sort of talking over her. We don't know how she feels about it, but I'm pretty sure it's not the bill that she wanted.
Yeah.
I'm imagining the blasphemy bill she's trying to bring in is going to end up being burn the Quran or else by the time it comes out.
Fingers crossed. We've got the Mail now, and it's easier to get UK residency as a paedophile than as a skilled worker, Kiri.
Outrage as convicted paedophile 44 who moved to the UK is allowed to stay as judge rules blocking him would violate his human rights. I like to play devil's advocate with stories sometimes, but with this one, how do I feel about paedophiles coming into the country?
I think we've got
I'm
enough,
generally
we've got
against
enough,
it.
sort of overseas paedophiles already from what I read in the papers.
Yeah,
what this guy was, though, sorry.
He didn't paedophile in this country, did he? Just, I mean, not that...
Oh, that's all right, then.
Yeah,
he hasn't done it here yet.
He was convicted paedophile who had served his sentence and then moved here. That is correct, right?
Yeah, he was in prison in America, then he was sent to the Caribbean, they got rid of him,
right.
and then he's come here, so...
Yeah. He's married a girl who he met when she was just 15. I mean, I don't know, it doesn't feel like quite the juiciest one we've had recently. There have been slightly more outrageous ones than this, you know...
I think that's on top of it, though. I think they're saying that it's...
I think it's more the fact that we've got an activist judiciary who side with a paedophile. I mean, normally, if you're going to look at deporting somebody, like, I'd have thought any sort of paedophilic crime would be an automatic...
I don't think it's the girl, the woman he's with now, because, he met her when she was 15. We don't know whether they were having a sexual relationship or not. But I think it's more that the change is not... we're not hearing from... And it might be, but we're not hearing from the court he's changed because of this, or, you know, he's taken up some religious belief or some therapy and he's a different person. It's more
castrated?
the ECHR...
No.
Yeah, he's being castrated. That would be...
Sorry,
then I'd be OK. Yeah, fair enough.
Just solve everything, you know?
Yes, therapy.
Rather than the ECHR just saying, we've got to let him in.
Well, it is ECHR, yeah. That's that's at the root of all these problems, isn't it? And so it's just another
interpretation of ECHR.
Yes. Is there a different interpretation of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the judges are... You can see judges in other countries bound by the same legislation don't make these same...
we're not that bound by it.
OK, fair enough. OK. Well, they should have them on a Zoom call or something. Maybe they should be retrained.
Let's get some Polish judges over to do these decisions.
Maybe that can be part of the Ukraine deal.
Yeah, still to come on headliners. Farmers get arrested for protesting. Labour's tax raid. Newcastle United join the gender wars. And Keir Starmer's voice coach cries misogyny over criticism. This is Headliners, only on GB News.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let's go to gbnews.com/yoursay for a couple of your comments. Maggie says, what is to stop Zelensky turning on Europe now he knows how weak and pathetic they are? If he teamed up with Putin, you'd have the two most capable militaries in Europe.
Team up with Putin and Poland. How about that? He would absolutely take Germany out without a fight.
And Hungary. Oh, my God. It's like the 1800s all over again. And Gareth says, as always, love you lads, but have been in pub for far too long and I'm homosexual. Okay.
That came out of nowhere.
I know that, Gareth.
We'll find out at the pub later. Anyway, we've got the Telegraph now, and apparently the reporter who sparked the spat in the White House is married to top MAGA firebrand Marjorie Taylor Greene. I haven't seen a reporter this impartial since Ed Balls interviewed his wife. Simon.
Yes, interesting. I asked Grok whether actually this question did spark the row, and it was ultimately, I think it came down on the side of no. This was not probably the hinge point, but the MAGA reporter whose humiliation of Zelensky sparked a geopolitical crisis, he was up at the back on the right. I mean, if you can picture the whole thing, and he shouted out, "Why don't you wear a suit? You're at the highest level in this country's office and you refuse to wear a suit. Do you own a suit?" sneered Mr. Glenn. The famous response from Zelensky was, when my country is no longer at war, perhaps then I will wear a costume, which I think was quite jarring at the time, but apparently that is essentially...
Spider-Man.
Well, apparently that is the Ukrainian word for suit.
Right.
It's just costume.
Oh, I see.
So he thought that he was speaking an English word. He thought it was... But it's
he is speaking a second language.
Well, of course, a lot of international leaders are expected to do that. He's quite rare in just how bad his is, to be honest, although Putin doesn't do it at all.
He's had enough this week, Simon.
Jabbing. Why don't you wear a suit and take a lingua
By the way, speak properly.
There are some well affordable. You've had 3 years to get this right. I think he should have actually been using a translator. No, and I don't mean that as a jibe. I think it would have made things a lot easier.
And it would have maybe slowed down.
Yes, absolutely.
I think that was. But you know what? It's because it happened. Everyone's looking for every little thing that he could have possibly done wrong, which I think is a lot. Actually, I think he had bad advice throughout, and he could have studied Trump a little bit better. He should have realised, even saying I thanked America loads. As far as Trump's concerned, you're talking about Biden's America. That's not America, as far as from his point of view. It didn't count for anything. What's interesting right now is seeing Americans behave this way about suits. They used to accuse the Brits of being stuffy about in the way we dress, and now they're the ones going, "You're not wearing a suit." Of course, famously, we keep hearing about Churchill when they're in his boiler suit, which was also he would wear during wartime. But the truth is, he just liked wearing a boiler suit. He was comfortable in one.
Yes, he was a bit of a big baby, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
He used to like a romper suit.
His romper suit, and he had a pinstripe one made. He had a tailor-made romper suit made.
Amazing.
But even then, he wasn't dressing as an officer or a member of the army. He's dressing as the guys who work in the engine room. So,
I just want to say we haven't addressed the story, such as it appears in the Telegraph, which is that this man, the reporter, is the husband or boyfriend of what was repeatedly described as right-wing firebrand Marjorie Taylor Greene. That's the scoop that they've got. That's who he is. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is, of course, also known as MTG. She is pretty much the most right-wing congresswoman that there is.
She could chew through concrete. She is insane.
Absolutely. She's the Jewish space lasers woman. So
you might want to explain that, because everyone knows what
in the evening.
People watching might think you actually think she's a Jewish space laser. But
she was convinced that that's what Israel have.
They were starting LA fires with their space lasers.
Oh, was it LA
And you know what happened as a result? Israel started working on space lasers. they have.
They thought that's a good idea.
They went, that's interesting.
OK, well, moving on, we've got the Telegraph now, and police are threatening to arrest farmers at the Pancake Day protest. They must be flipping mad.
I'm really disappointed in this story because I read it at first. Farmers protesting Labour tax raid at Pancake Day rally face arrest, and this is really the Public Order Act saying they can't bring tractors in, as which is being applied on this occasion.
Yeah.
I thought this was a Pancake Day rule that we didn't know about. I thought this was going to be like the taxis with their bale of hay, which by the way is also an urban myth. But it
driving geese across London Bridge.
Yeah, that's another one, isn't it? Yeah. Is that one also a myth?
That's is that one also a myth, or is that an old? Of the City of London. It's one of those things that comes when you become a freeman. You get a few old archaic rights. Yeah. You're entitled to drive geese across by the tipping of the stick.
Oh, it's a wonderful country. What a wonderful place.
Should be driven to school as well.
So for the last few years we've had Just Stop Oil and Extinction Rebellion, carrying on. And I know they brought through new laws and they've started arresting them now, but the farmers didn't get any of that fun.
No. That's true.
No, and they're being told they can't. This is the Department Assistant Commissioner Ben Russell, and he's saying that there'll be lengthy road delays if they bring in the tractors. But London's now 20 miles an hour anyway.
Yeah.
And the tractor's got a top speed of 25, so I don't see that's a problem anymore.
No, it's not going to be the main block. Oh, no, I'm stuck behind a tractor. I'll never get to work.
It's a non-story because they said we're not really planning tractors on this one anyway. So basically the police said don't bring your tractors. They're going, we're not going to
harvesters instead.
But what they're trying to do is they're trying to emphasise that pancakes don't come out of nowhere.
Yeah, totally. Yes.
I don't think it's going to work.
They're going to make a big pancake
come from shops.
We all know that.
That's when they start taxing shops.
Yeah.
We've got the Daily Mail now, and the US has cut funding to a British LGBTQ group. So if you see a drag queen begging on the pavement, you know why.
Yeah, this is marvellous news, isn't it? The funding that Stonewall have been receiving, $600,000 annually from USAID.
That's insane.
To Stonewall. Now, Stonewall, I'm sure regular viewers will be aware, but I think the general GB News position on Stonewall is that they were a once august organisation that fought courageously for gay rights, but has been captured by the more extreme sort of lobbyists of the TQ plus cohort. In fact, one of the headliners regulars, Simon Fanshawe, was one of their original founders and made that case most emphatically that they had lost their way. And they've become essentially a protection racket, whereby they demand that organisations adopt their training policies, and otherwise they will make themselves subject and vulnerable to the legal cases and complaints and so on. And so I am absolutely delighted to see that their funding has been cut. And it's extraordinary to me that the Daily Mail seems to be lamenting it. The ramifications of USAID's funding freeze are already proving catastrophic, say the Daily Mail. What on earth has happened to them?
Yeah, it's weird. Maybe they just wrote it in a hurry or used AI or something. I don't know. It's weird. And it makes you wonder, Kerry, how much UK aid money is being spent on stuff like this. Because I thought foreign aid money, genuinely went to helping starving or sick people. And it turns out is promoting weird far-left ideologies.
I've no doubt a load of it goes to good causes, but at the same time, a load of it doesn't as well.
Yeah.
And we're already doing that, aren't we? We talked about it a few moments ago that we're pulling a lot of international aid because we need for our war effort that's building up.
Yeah.
So that's happening. But why is the USAID is humanitarian relief, and why is that going to an ideological charity in the UK? It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
Charity, an interfering workplace.
Yes, exactly. Well, exactly.
People off the street.
What's come out with USAID is a whole load of money. $2 billion during this war since October the 7th. $2 billion has gone to Gaza, which has gone 90% of that went straight to Hamas.
Wow!
So we were funding the other side of a war. Rather, America was funding the other side of a war.
Well, it's that classic meme, isn't it? My tax dollars somehow also my tax dollars.
Yes. That's what happens. But here's an interesting paragraph from this article. It says the Bank of England, it's been revealed, submitted a 103-page application to make it onto Stonewall's list of 100 top employers, boasting that it used the term birthing parent for a bank. Where does a bank slip in the word? Like, open your birthing parent account.
It does depend exactly at what point. Maybe they use the term birthing parent as a mild oath. You know,
yeah, birthing parent.
Birthing parent.
But also, we've used the term birthing parent loads on this show. So why aren't we in Stonewall's
list? We're the
list?
only people using it, to be honest. You know, we've got The Guardian now, and Keir Starmer's voice coach says press coverage mocking her is misogynistic. Listen, love, it's not because you're a woman. It's because we've heard Starmer's voice. You're clearly useless. Tell us more, Kieran.
Well, I think that sounds a bit sexist to me, Leo.
Listen, love.
Let's take this. No, I don't want to be misogynistic. Let's take this seriously and see what the silly moo has to say. That was a joke. Oh my, people can't handle anything anymore. Keir Starmer's voice coach says press coverage of her work was misogynistic, and what she's getting at is because when all this came out, there was some rumours or suggestions or questions about whether there was something romantic involvement of any kind. I don't know why that is misogynistic, because that's just as misandric, isn't it? It's assuming of Starmer that he might have been getting up to something. So she's taking that very much being about herself, but she's also saying this is all about violence against women and girls. Like, where's the violence?
Yeah.
I'm not sure where violence comes into this.
She's trying to elevate herself into some sort of victim role. It's absolutely absurd. She complains that it was wrong to describe her as a voice coach. She had worked on Starmer's emotional connection when speaking in public.
When speaking?
His voice.
Well, that's
when speaking, like a voice coach.
That's a very, very tiny difference.
That's worse. So voice coachy. Can we say voice coachy?
I mean, what do they think voice coach? Oh, that's not voice coaching you're doing there. You're working on his emotional connection. Don't you overstep your bounds.
Also, what was she telling him to build an emotional connection? Well, make sure you call them all far-right punts. I mean, like, what on earth? This is a nonsense.
Absurd. Absolutely absurd. Start pointing with the tip of your thumb.
Yeah, that worked for Tony Blair. Anyway, that's it for this section, but don't go away. We've got doctors suggesting crying to get better treatment on the NHS. And is your child worth £500,000? And we've got Generation Z's obsession with filler means they're ageing faster than a PM under pressure. This is Headliners, only on GB News.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, welcome to your latest winter sun forecast. Well, if you're heading towards Spain and the Canaries over the coming days, there will be some rain and potentially some strong winds around at times, but conditions will improve here as the week goes on. For parts of central Med, generally a fine start to the week here, maybe a few showers around, and for eastern areas, certainly temperatures are beginning to climb after a cold few days. And further west, actually, sunshine by the middle part of the week for Tenerife.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good evening, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. The north-south split that we've seen over the weekend does continue into the new working week, with temperatures around about average for the time of year, but they are on the rise by the time we get to next week. However, high pressure is still very much in charge across the southern half of the UK. Weather fronts trying to push in from the northwest, but generally weakening as they bump into that area of high pressure. This weather front perhaps bringing some quite heavy rainfall to western parts of Scotland through Sunday evening, but that rain gradually easing as it slips its way south and eastwards. The further south across the UK is a bit of a different picture. Plenty of clear spells overnight and likely turning really quite chilly here, perhaps as low as -4 or -5 in places, but generally not quite as cold under that cloud further north. Where we do see those clear spells across the southern half of the UK, we are likely to see some mist and fog developing overnight, and that could lead to a bit of disruption during Monday morning's rush hour, so do take care if you are travelling. Across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, into southern parts of Scotland, quite a cloudy start to the new working week. Some outbreaks of rain and drizzle, perhaps some hill fog in places, and for much of Scotland it will be a really quite cloudy start to the day. Some blustery showers feeding in across parts of Shetland and Orkney through Monday morning. Those blustery showers continue as we head towards Monday afternoon for Shetland and Orkney, and that rain and cloud across the central swathe of the UK does gradually start to ease as we go through the afternoon, but still remaining quite grey here to the end of Monday. But further south, again, the best of the sunshine here, plenty of blue skies on offer, and temperatures similar to what we saw over the weekend. Highs of 10, 11, perhaps 12 degrees as a maximum. As we then start on Tuesday, it'll be another cold, frosty, perhaps misty and foggy start across the southern half of the UK, but always cloudier further north, seeing rain arriving across the very far northwest as we head towards Tuesday afternoon, and really turning quite blustery here as well, perhaps some outbreaks of quite heavy rain across the northwest. But further south, it does look like it's going to stay sunny throughout Tuesday and Wednesday, and those temperatures are on the rise. We could see highs of 15 or 16 by Thursday.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. We've got the Times now, and having a child will cost you £500,000. I'm pretty sure I could get a Premiership footballer for that sign.
And they may be breeding one. I mean, you never know. That's got to be the dream, isn't it? It's quite an interesting piece. We all know having children is expensive, but the point is of the Times, are you better off having children despite the £500,000 cost? They've actually done something reasonably valuable here, which is to try and look at things from a not entirely quantifiable point of view, because we are, of course, facing a fertility crisis in this country, and we need people to accept that there may be some upsides, conceivably, on the other side of the trench warfare of the early days. And it is, as they say, it is a fact that young parents, by which they mean new parents, register and self-report, that their happiness has taken a hit. It can be hard work raising small children. I believe you've had a reasonably good time with it, but generally speaking, on balance, happiness can decline, but it rises later, and this doesn't always get reported. Now, it's a good question whether it's an actual improvement from their baseline or whether it's just that it's not as bad as it used to be, because I do think human beings, being the way they are, register direction of travel rather than absolutes. We tend to feel better when things are getting better. Several of my greatest moments in my life have been essentially convalescence, whether from a long illness or even just from a hangover. There's a lovely children's book called A Squash and a Squeeze, in which a woman who is experiencing a certain amount of unhappiness is encouraged by an old wise man to take in various farm animals into her house until it becomes intolerable. And then he says, now let them out again. And she goes, oh, my goodness, I love my house now. It hasn't got any geese and pigs in it.
Yeah, there is that to it, isn't there? Saying that when your children finally leave, that's a bit like saying if you wear tight shoes for 20 years, you're actually now happier than someone who never wore them. But also the 500,000, that's coming from an estate agent, and I think they're just trying to say don't have children, and they'll probably say it costs a lot to have pets as well. You don't really want to have pets in your house. But apparently, if you adopt children, then you gain an extra 5 years of your life through happiness, which I'm wondering if that can compensate for smoking, or, I'm planning on to adopt 100 children. Laugh at me when I'm 130.
Well, let's quickly, in 30 seconds, squeeze this one in, because we've got The Guardian recommending you get the most from the NHS by crying and interrupting, Kieran.
Yeah, very quickly, this is a load of advice given out by doctors, how best to go to this doctor's surgery. I didn't even know they had the time to do this, but apparently they do. So be upfront with the doctor. Raise significant symptoms first, because apparently there's a lot of people who go in and say, I've got a sore foot, and talk about it for ages, and just as they're leaving, they go, also, I'm pooing out my nose. And the doctor's like, oh, you didn't mention that. And yes, it includes things, dress appropriately, that's one for Zelensky, and cry. My mother told me that when I was a child. Go to the doctor and cry.
Surgery.
How dare you?
Over course, let's take a look at Monday's front pages. The Express has "Time for talk is over. Europe must step up." The Daily Mail has "The King's show of solidarity with Zelensky." The Guardian has "Prime Minister calls for coalition of willing to end Ukraine war." The Telegraph has "We are at a crossroads in history," Starmer tells Europe, although, as Simon pointed out, it's more of a T-junction. And the Daily Star has "Flippin' lovely out there, folks. The weather is nice." So that's it for tonight's show. Thank you to my guests Simon and Kerry. Josh Howie will be back tomorrow night at 11 p.m. with Simon and Nick Dixon. And if you're watching the 5 a.m. repeat, then stay tuned for breakfast, and I'll see you next Friday. Goodbye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. The north-south split that we've seen over the weekend does continue into the new working week, with temperatures around about average for the time of year, but they are on the rise by the time we get to next week. However, high pressure still very much in charge across the southern half of the UK. Weather fronts trying to push in from the northwest, but generally weakening as they bump into that area of high pressure. This weather front perhaps bringing some quite heavy rainfall to western parts of Scotland through Sunday evening, but that rain gradually easing as it slips its way south and eastwards. The further south across the UK is a bit of a different picture. Plenty of clear spells overnight and likely turning really quite chilly here, perhaps as low as -4 or -5 in places, but generally not quite as cold under that cloud further north. Where we do see those clear spells across the southern half of the UK, we are likely to see some mist and fog developing overnight, and that could lead to a bit of disruption during Monday morning's rush hour, so do take care if you are travelling. Across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, into southern parts of Scotland, quite a cloudy start to the new working week. Some outbreaks of rain and drizzle, perhaps some hill fog in places, and for much of Scotland it will be a really quite cloudy start to the day. Some blustery showers feeding in across parts of Shetland and Orkney through Monday morning. Those blustery showers continue as we head towards Monday afternoon for Shetland and Orkney, and that rain and cloud across the central swathe of the UK does gradually start to ease as we go through the afternoon, but still remaining quite grey here to the end of Monday. But further south, again, the best of the sunshine here, plenty of blue skies on offer, and temperatures similar to what we saw over the weekend. Highs of 10, 11, perhaps 12 degrees as a maximum. As we then start on Tuesday, it'll be another cold, frosty, perhaps misty and foggy start across the southern half of the UK, but always cloudier further north, seeing rain arriving across the very far northwest as we head towards Tuesday afternoon, and really turning quite blustery here as well, perhaps some outbreaks of quite heavy rain across the northwest. But further south, it does look like it's going to stay sunny throughout Tuesday and Wednesday, and those temperatures are on the rise. We could see highs of 15 or 16 by Thursday.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could be one of 2 big winners in our latest giveaway, as we have 2 prize bundles that have to be won. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. Hurry, lines close on the 7th of March. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m.